Happy New Year, everybody, and look out for your own safety with one another back there. Today, we're meeting to make sure that we continue to deliver lower inflation, more jobs, an economy that works for everybody, and it works from the bottom up and the middle out, not trickle down economics, which is one of the reasons I ran for office in the first place. I've never seen trickle down work very much for working class families. After a rough few years, we're seeing some really bright spots, I believe, and across our entire nation. I think we've made some real progress in the last going on 2 years now, almost two. But now we need to focus on implementing some of the big laws that we actually passed, and so American people can feel the benefits of what we've done. The big laws we passed are consequential, but they were basically promises to most people. They passed them, they're now the law, they're going to happen, but they didn't take effect. For example, the whole idea of paying $35 for insulin. Well, that's a nice promise after it was made 6 months ago, and it's in the law, but it didn't take place until January 1. People are all now going to begin to see it. And details matter, and being responsive to the American public obviously matters a great deal. And that's why we're going to discuss today. For example, as of this week, I told you the seniors insulin's going to be $35 instead of $400 for a month. Millions on Medicare are going to be allowed to pay zero for most of the vaccines they're going to need. Drug makers are going to face penalties if they hike prices faster than the rate of inflation, unless they can demonstrate they've made significant new investments to make the product better. Families can get up to $3,200 tax credits to make their homes more energy efficient, reducing their prices. That's estimated at $500 a year. That's going to make a difference in their lives. And by putting on new windows, new doors, lowering energy bills, a whole range of things they're going to be able to do. And folks need to know how to take advantage of these benefits that we've gotten past. And about half of these benefits are the consequence of bipartisan legislation that we actually were able to get done. And so, but that's on us. That's on all of us around the table here to make sure we get that message out clearly and in a way that these laws were designed to work. But I know we can do it. I'm confident we're going to be able to do that. And that's why I'm so optimistic about this new year. There's just a lot to implement. If you look around all the major pieces of legislation we passed, and I might add, parenthetically, we reduced the deficit $1.7 trillion in 2 years. Okay? Nobody's ever done that before. And so it's this idea they're big spenders and we just ballooned the deficit. Wrong. We actually brought it down. And so, but as I said, it's up to us to get the word out. And we've already have major companies have invested, committed to invest $300 billion in the near term, largely thanks to the CHIPS and Research Act that we passed. It's going to make a gigantic difference. It's going to employ a lot of people. For example, I was talking to some of the folks yesterday from Ohio. That field of dreams I talked about. There are going to be 7,000 construction jobs, but 3,000 of those jobs are going to be full-time jobs, and the average salary is going to be, I think it's $132,000 a year, or $126,000 a year. You don't need a college degree for all those jobs. That's what I call the neighborhood I come from, real progress. And so, and I don't know where it's written, you've heard me say this before, that we can't lead the world in manufacturing again. Because that $300 billion in manufacturing, largely thanks to the CHIPS Act, we expect between public and private investment, we expect another $3.5 trillion to be invested in the next decade. And that means jobs, it means growth, it means security, it means economic prosperity, it means that everything from our national defenses to our economic strength is going to be sustained. And so we're, as I said, just yesterday, as you know, because some of you traipsed down to the Brent Spence Bridge with me in between Ohio and Kentucky, folks have been talking about repairing that bridge for decades. And we're finally getting it done. We're getting it done by working together, Democrats and Republicans, which was my message yesterday when I was joined by Mitch McConnell and a Republican governor and others, a bipartisan group of leaders and both are parties to this. I never realized that's redundant, but it's important to note that. And and today, consistent with the executive order I issued, the Federal Trade Commission is going to take a huge step forward in banning non-compete agreements that are designed simply to lower people's wages. It's one thing to say you can't work inside in a technology company on a special project that has scientific consequences and move to another company without a non-compete agreement. It's another thing to say you're working for Subway and you can't walk across the street and go to Jimmy John's and get a 20-cent raise. What tells that all about other than keeping wages down? And so these agreements block millions of retail workers, construction workers, and other working folks from taking better jobs and get better pay and benefits in the same field. And so the bottom line is, I believe our economic vision is working. And we're in the process of implementing the first piece that we've gotten done, and we're going to move on. And we're exporting projects instead of exporting jobs, I might add. When we, the first cabinet meeting, I told you all, you kind of looked at me like you mean it, was that we're going to be in a position where in the United States of America, there was a law that passed in the late 30s that said that when the president is given money to spend to purchase anything from the deck of an aircraft carrier to railings on public buildings, he can decide, and if he wishes to, or she wishes to, can decide that they are going to spend that money on American-made products, American steel, American companies, etc. Well, it was never done very much. I think there was 50%. Anyway, well, guess what? We did it, and you did it, all of you around this table. And the end result of that is that we're exporting product instead of jobs. We're exporting product instead of jobs. And that's a big deal. It's a gigantic deal. And so we're in a situation now where, the idea that we're seeing solid growth, resilient labor market, and signs of inflation is easy. And it doesn't mean it's all over. It means that, we're off to a pretty darn good start. And I just don't want to get us suckered into thinking that we can sort of let up on the gas pedal what we've already passed and make sure we implement it properly. And so it means implementing and delivering real benefits for everyday lives of the American people. And we're also going to implement these key domestic initiatives here in the U.S., but we also need to have, as one of our top priorities, our priorities overseas, which this guy in the Intelligence Committee are handling, and in addition, the Intelligence Committee are handling extremely well. Right now, the war in Ukraine is a critical point. We have to do everything we can to help the Ukrainians resist Russian aggression, and Russia is not attempting to slow up. The actions they're taking are as barbaric as they were a year ago, and they're not letting up at all. Early this afternoon, I had a long discussion with Olaf Scholz about Ukraine and our alliances in Europe and the EU, and we have a much larger contingent of countries that share our view, including Japan and others. But we talked about what we're going to do, and today we jointly announced, you've already gotten copies of it, a statement saying that we're going to increase the support for Ukraine. We are going to provide the Bradley infantry fighting vehicles, the United States, to the Ukrainians, and the Germans are going to provide the Marder infantry fighting vehicles that they have to the Ukrainians. And in addition, we're going to help defend Ukraine against Russian air attacks. Germany's also announced that today it's going to provide the Ukrainians to deal with the air attacks, a Patriot air defense system. We're going to provide an additional Patriot air defense battery. They work, and the Russians are beginning to realize that. They function well, and they're helping a lot. And so I guess what I'm saying is that there's a lot to get done, a lot we've started on, and I think we're on the right path. On the right path to bring America back and keep it back, not just bring it back. I was talking with the vice president earlier today. She and I were in the office just talking, and we talked about this is not about getting back to a level spot. This is about going to a whole new plateau. That's been the history of the country. It's not just that we've gradually increased. We have and I know even my cabinet members are probably tired of hearing me saying it. We're the only country in the world that's come out of every crisis stronger than we went in. Stronger than we went in. Stronger than we went in. And that means a whole new platform, a whole new plateau we've reached. And we're going to continue to do that. This is not just about staying, level. It's about significantly increasing our capacity and opportunities for the American people. And lastly, I say this with some humility sitting next to the Secretary of State, but I think the rest of the world knows, Tony, that what we do, they'll benefit from. We, unlike other nations that had power, we're not trying to hoard the power. We know we're better off when every other nation is doing better. For real. For real. And so that's why I'm excited about the next 2 years. I think you've heard me say it 100 times, but I am more optimistic about America's prospects than I've ever been in my career. So thank you all for coming in. I know you have 6,000 questions. The answer is yes, no, yes, yes, no.